Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Navy League's annual Sea Air Space Conference and Trade Show outside Washington, D.C., the #1 gathering of U.S. Navy leaders from around the world, as well as international chiefs of Navy, to talk strategy, budgets, technology, and more. Our coverage here is sponsored by GE Marine, Huntington Ingalls Industries, and Leonardo DRS, and we're here on the Leonardo stand to talk to the president and CEO of the company, Bill Lynn, former Deputy Defense Secretary, former Comptroller, former PA&E. How many more jobs can we get, Bill?
That's good enough, I think.
It is. Thanks very much for the time. So when you and I talked, your side of the company has been given crackerjack earnings back to the whole Leonardo group. You indicated that you would make it 5 years in a row in terms of very, very positive results. Talk to us a little bit about your contribution to Leonardo's results and how much of that money goes back into reinvestment into this side of the business that has really been a moneymaker for the company.
Well, no, Leonardo overall had a good year. They hit or exceeded all their numbers. Leonardo DRS did particularly well. We were 43% year over year on bookings and about 20% on revenue. As you said, that was actually our fourth straight year of profitable growth, and we're very strongly moving towards a fifth year this year. So we're on a roll.
And talk to us a little bit about where those investment dollars are going. It's the 50th anniversary year of the company, and I want to talk to you about that in a little bit. But do you see sort of the sweet spots where you guys are putting most of your investment?
Well, we have 8 lines of business. We've consolidated the company down from, I think there were 27 lines of business when I got here about 7 years ago, and we've consolidated it down to 8, and we're particularly strong in the Army, where we have 4 lines of business, and in the Navy, where we have 2, and then we have a global satellite communications business and an airborne training business. So we've invested in all of those. Both the Army and the Navy have been growing at double-digit rates. We've been investing in protective systems for the Army, the active protection system, which we are now putting on M1 tanks, teamed with Rafael, an Israeli company, and infrared countermeasures coming out of our Daylight Solutions business, which we acquired a couple of years ago, that has next generation quantum cascade lasers, which has a size, weight, and power advantage particularly for smaller helicopters, to give them the kind of protection that only the larger helicopters used to be able to get.
And you guys also are working to put that trophy system onto thinner skin vehicles as well, as we've discussed. We talked to Mike about that when we were down in Huntsville at the Global Force Symposium. Let me ask you, what are some of the key things you guys are highlighting here, aside from the fact that you have an actual real helicopter sitting here as opposed to a model?
We do have the Navy trainer that's in competition to be the next generation Navy training helicopter that Leonardo Helicopters bids. They've just submitted the proposals, waiting. I think it'll be a few months before Navy's able to evaluate those, but I think sometime in the next few months we'll see the winner there. We have it's up here behind you, the FFGX. We don't build the actual ship, but we build a lot of the stuff that would go on it, and we have a lot of the power propulsion systems, the electronics, the computing systems, and so we're teaming with various of the multiple competitors to be a big part of the FFGX, just like we're a big part of the Ohio replacement and the next generation carrier.
Let me ask you a little bit about the outlook for spending. It's been, as you said, double-digit growth, a lot of investment. I think lawmakers understand the reason you invest in the Navy as well as in ground capability, and even the Air Force has benefited from that, although there is some debate about whether or not they need F-15Xs necessarily. But do you think that this is sustainable? I mean, as somebody who is very, very sharp on the budget, and obviously you were on the Senate side for a long time up on the Hill, is this a sustainable curve that we're on? I mean, do you see, sort of a tightening as you look out there? Because folks are saying, that this is going to be the next big robust year, and then we flatten, if not go down. How do you suss out this environment that we're in right now? And how much longer can it grow at these sorts of rates?
Well, I mean, as you know, Bob Vaga, there's a whole variety of factors. I mean, the biggest one is the threat. And I think the threat is going up. I think the new strategy that then Secretary Mattis announced was really a larger focus on peer competitors. And those kinds of competitors require larger investment, which is where we've gone. I don't think that threat's going to fundamentally change over the next 5 to 7 years. So I think that's going to drive growth. The other part of it is the fiscal world. There we're facing larger and larger deficits, although the defense budget is becoming a smaller and smaller part of the overall federal budget. I mean, the 3 to 4% range. So you're not going to balance the budget by changing the trajectory of the defense budget. It could be part of a solution in that way, but not, it wouldn't be anything like entitlements or revenues, which is really where you would go if you wanted to address the deficit. Then the third factor is political support. And there I think you see fairly bipartisan support for a robust defense budget. Maybe disagreements over the exact numbers, but I don't think we're in the era we were in the early 90s where there was demands for a peace dividend, to re-inject resources out of the defense budget and into other national priorities. I think you do see fairly strong support across the political spectrum for what is seen as an adequate to strong level of defense spending.
Let me just, you talked about a lot of capability. One of the things that was one of your hallmarks when you were the Deputy Secretary was your focus on cyber, talking about cyber and the challenges, and prescient in some respects in terms of where we are now and the kind of investment that's necessary. Do you want to build up Leonardo DRS's cyber capabilities? Do you see there being a great opportunity to leverage into that space?
I don't know that that's exactly the direction. Cyber capabilities, I think, are an essential part of every system at this point. And that's where Leonardo DRS plays. We have strong cyber assurance programs, which you absolutely have to have if you're an electronics or a computing provider, which we are. And so our cyber capabilities are not so much standalone capabilities as they are complementary to the electronics, to the sensing, to the computing capabilities we have, so they protect them in this higher threat environment.
Do you, as you look at the department, everybody wants to do business more quickly. That was something that the Obama administration talked about doing, and in some respects speeded some things up. This administration has been talking about further acceleration, using increasingly other transactional authorities and a whole bunch of other things to move the ball very, very quickly. We saw some of the Bush administration do that with some rapid fielding initiatives, and Obama administration picked up as well, to go outside the customary acquisition system to scratch particular itches. Do you see in the conversations that you have with Secretary Shanahan or with Undersecretary Lord or Undersecretary Griffin, do you notice a pace change? Do you see things moving more quickly from the standpoint of speeding acquisition programs?
I think, they're only 2 years in, and it's acquisition's a long cycle business. I think they're working hard. Ellen Lord spoke this morning at a breakfast about all the process improvements they're trying to make and trying to shrink that timeline that it takes to develop a weapon system. But it takes a lot. There's a lot of process that's built in. There's a lot of protections that are built in, and you have to change the risk calculus. You have to be willing to take more financial risk, take more schedule risk in order to get that compressed development cycle. I think that's the direction they're going, but it's a relatively long road. You can't make immediate changes in these kinds of systems.
Especially when there were 535 board of director members, each one of which has an idea about how, God forbid, an ox is gored. Let me ask you about the 50th anniversary year of the company. I know that you tend to think strategically. I'm not going to ask you for what the next 50 years is going to look like, but reflect a little bit about where you guys have been and what kind of a springboard that gives you for where you want to take the company and set it up 10 years from now, which is, I know, generally your time horizon when you've been looking at things.
Well, no, thanks, Vago. This is, as you said, the 50th anniversary for original DRS. Started in a GE appliance store in Mount Vernon, New York, with just a couple of guys. Developed a system. They spun out of Loral, a passive sonar system. They built it into a successful company, and then we built, starting in the early 90s by acquisition, into a multi-billion-dollar mid-tier defense company, and now we're a part of Leonardo DRS. As we noted, we're on a strong growth path. I think we have the characteristics of leanness, agility, and a diversity of products that give us a lot of hope for the next 10 years, that we're hoping to extend that 5-year growth path into a 15-year growth path. That 43% increase in bookings is certainly an indicator that we're on the right path, and I think the best is yet to come.
Bill Lynn, President and CEO of Leonardo DRS. Bill, always a pleasure, and best of luck and happy corporate birthday.
Thanks very much, Bob. Always a pleasure.
Any cake around here?
No cake, but we got the brochure for you.
Thank you very much.